The homeless crisis in Missoula is no secret, and recently homeless camping has been restricted in some places. I'm joined by Katie Fairbanks with Montana Free Press. Katie, you recently published an article about Missoula's homeless crisis and the confusion that has come with the rules set in place. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So, Katie, you talk about a man named Brad Carlson in a lot of this article. Tell me a little bit about Brad.
Yeah, so Brad is a homeless, unsheltered resident in Missoula. He's been staying underneath the Russell Street Bridge for about 6 months. And he was part of the mayor's urban camping working group that was meeting earlier this year to kind of work on some recommendations of what the city could do to kind of help address urban camping in the city. And they created some recommendations that informed the new rules that went into place earlier this summer. And he was one of several group members that wanted the city to designate safe spaces for camping before before enforcing restrictions. And last month, Brad was cited twice for breaking the new rules. He was cited for being too close to the Clark Fork River, too close to a path or a sidewalk, and having belongings outside of his tent. And he disputes the citations and is going through the court process right now.
All right, Katie, what's the most confusing part when you were gathering information about this article where people can and cannot camp?
Yeah, so the ordinance is pretty long and has a lot of different parts. It restricts when, where, and how people can camp on public property. So there's multiple things that might be confusing to different people. Missoula previously banned camping on all city property, but it did not enforce that rule for the last few years, mostly because of the Ninth Circuit Court ruling that cities couldn't criminalize homelessness if there wasn't adequate shelter available. And the new rules allow camping in most of the city's 65 parks, which that's kind of a lot of different locations. There's 9 exceptions where no camping is allowed, and that's listed on the city's website. So there seems to be some confusion, particularly from a map that the city put out when the rules first went into effect in late July that listed 9 to 10 parks as examples of where people could go. And the city told me that some folks thought, oh, that's where the city is sending people specifically. But that's not the case. They are allowed to go to most parks. Those were just supposed to be examples. And the buffer zones might be confusing as well. Those are kind of areas around homes, businesses, rivers where people can't camp. So they're supposed to be 300 feet away or 100 feet away. So that can be kind of a lot to keep track of if you are living on the street.
Yeah, for sure. What was your biggest takeaway with how the city of Missoula is handling this situation as a whole?
Um, I think the scope of the ordinance and all the pieces that go into it is just kind of large. And so it's getting implemented a bit slower than people might have expected. The ordinance was passed by the city council at the end of June and was supposed to go into effect at the end of July. And those kind of 30 days were maybe not enough time to kind of get everything going and get all the pieces in place as far as what the city staff has mentioned to me. They had to work out how they were going to enforce the rules and work on a couple of different pieces that were mentioned in there, including a permit system for people who are living in their vehicles. That's still in the works. And as well as some kind of support resources for people, like additional bathrooms, things like that. It was just kind of a lot, I think, to get done in maybe a short amount of time. So the city is kind of just working through all that as they can.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me, Katie. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Perfect. Anything else you want to mention or talk about?
I don't think so.
Cool.
Was that
Well,
okay?
thank you. Yeah, that was great. That was perfect.
Okay, great.
Thanks so much for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
And
No
then we're going to
problem.
run this sometime next week. So I'll be in touch and I'll
Next week.
send it over to you.
Okay, awesome. Thank
All right.
you.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, have a good one.
Okay, you too. Bye bye.